Everyone at the office is learning the same dance from the same 15-second video. A line is forming for a gadget nobody had even heard of a month ago. Half your feed is watching the same show and posting the same reaction. And there's always one person who just scrolls past all of it, seemingly unmoved. It's easy to call that person a contrarian or boring, or someone straining to look different on purpose. That red usually misses the actual mechanism. Scrolling past might have nothing to do with putting on a performance of not caring. It might simply mean the trend has nothing to offer a taste that was formed long before it arrived. And that comes down to one basic question: where does your sense of self come from? This difference usually shows up in three psychological ways. Some people's sense of what they like was built a long time ago, and it isn't rebuilt every time the crowd changes direction. They already know what they're into, what they believe, and how they want to show up in a room. A new trend doesn't feel like an exciting discovery to someone like that. It feels closer to an update nobody asked for, arriving on a system that already runs fine. They're not turning away from the trend to look different. They're not turning toward it because there was nothing in it they were missing. There's also a quieter, more practical reason. Keeping up with a trend has a real cost that rarely gets counted. Learning the dance, tracking down the product, catching up on a show that finished trending 3 days ago, forming an opinion fast enough for it to still matter to anyone. All of that pulls from the same limited supply of attention you have for everything else in your day. Some people spend that supply differently. Not because they're lazy or disengaged, but because they're already spending it somewhere they've decided actually matters to them, and a trend rarely makes the cut. And then there's the part that shows up as instinct rather than reasoning. Psychologists call this psychological reactance, the reflex to push back when choice starts to feel like pressure. The moment something feels like it's being pushed at you from everywhere at once, some brains push back automatically. It's the same reflex behind a forbidden snack suddenly tasting better, or a deadline you were fine with feeling unbearable the moment someone starts checking in on it hourly. When a trend stops feeling like an option and starts feeling like an expectation, some people's first response is simply not to. Not because they thought it through, because being told what to want, even gently, even by an algorithm, can feel like someone else's hand reaching for something they'd rather keep hold of themselves. But here's the part worth sitting with for a second. Rejecting every popular thing on principle isn't automatically independence either. If your first instinct is to dismiss something only because it's popular, the crowd is still steering. It has simply pushed you into the opposite lane. One person follows when the crowd presses play, another automatically presses stop. Different button, same source of control. The remote is only really yours when you decide whether something fits you before checking what everyone else has already decided. None of this makes trends worthless either. They give people something to talk about at lunch, a shared joke, a reason a room full of strangers suddenly has something in common. Opting out of everything every time can quietly opt you out of some of that too. Wanting connection isn't a flaw hiding underneath independence. It's just a separate question from whether a specific trend is actually for you. So here's a test worth running. Honestly, if everyone who's currently doing the thing you refuse to do stopped tomorrow, would you still refuse it? If the answer is yes, that preference is probably actually yours. If the answer is no, it's worth asking who's really been holding the remote this whole time. What's the last trend you actually opted out of, and was it really about you or about them? You can support The Mind Made Simple by subscribing if you like thinking about the psychology behind ordinary decisions like this one. Because real independence was never about rejecting whatever's popular. It's about popularity having no vote in the decision at all.